Beck, and I'm very proud to be the athletic director for the Cape Henlopen School District. We are here today to dedicate our baseball field to Chris Short, a great player who loved baseball. This is an occasion that brings together families and friends of Chris Short and Cape Henlopen baseball. In attendance today, we have Mrs. Chris Short, Pat Short, Chris's wife, Chris's son, Mr. Ron Short, Chris's father, Mr. Isaac Short. We have Chris's nephew, Howard Joseph. We are pleased to have them with us this morning. Representing the Philadelphia Phillies organization, we have Keith Carpenter, Al Cartwright, Dallas Green, Paul Owens, Larry Shank, and we have Brandon Davis with us, who used to scout for the Phillies, and we will not hold it against him that he's with the Yankees now. I am extremely pleased to try to recognize former coaches from Lewis High School and from Cape Henlopen High School who are in attendance today. We are very pleased to have Tony Georgiana, Mr. Lee Sterling, Mr. Don Hanley, Mr. Mike Eisenhower, Mr. Chip Davis, and I hope I've not missed anyone. I thank you for being here with us. This dedication is a realization of a dream of Lou Rickards and Mike Cunningham, plus the support of many others. There are many people to thank for this event, and I apologize in advance at this moment if there's someone I missed. The project has brought a closer working relationship between our school and our community. A special thank you to the Cape Henlopen baseball boosters, Mrs. Vicki Evick, Mr. Bill Vernon, to the Lewis Little League, to Lou Rickards, Mike Cunningham. A special thanks to Ronson Burton of Burton's Landscaping for the outstanding and very appropriate configuration around our monument. A thanks to Coach Kaiser and his Wilmington ball team, who are going to play the game when we're finished with our dedication ceremony. And a special and most sincere thanks to the members of the 1992 Viking baseball team for their assistance, their dedication, and their desire to play baseball. We are here today to pay honor and tribute to Chris Short. It is appropriate at this time that I introduce to you Mr. Dallas Green for some remarks.
Thanks, Margaret. When Margaret called us to be part of this dedication ceremony, we were particularly pleased. As a member of the Phillies family, and Margaret didn't tell you, but I'm now working with the Mets, so I guess that won't. I guess I'll have to be excused too. But they're paying the bills now, but I still somehow always have a tug at the heart with the Phillies. They're very, very special, and obviously the Phillies family is very, very special to this part of the country, and certainly Chris Short was part of that family, and that's why we're here. You were introduced to the people that were fairly close to Chris as he was growing up in the minor leagues, and also as a major league guy. I was probably as close as anybody to Chris when we broke in together. I can still remember us leaving the train station at Wilmington to go to our first spring training together. Both of us were scared to death. We were born and raised Delawareans, and going to our first major league camp was really special to both of us. Shorty obviously had a heck of a lot more ability than I ever thought about having. He made quite a thing out of pitching in the big leagues. And one thing about Shorty, when he got to the mound, he was really a special guy. He really knew how to set up hitters, work and use his stuff probably as good as anybody I ever saw. We were talking back here to a friend of his, and he said he'd probably never make his living as a hitter, because when he played softball he didn't do very well. I called him the worst looking best hitter in the major leagues. He always had his rear end out and swinging the bat, but he got base hits. I never knew how he did it. But Shorty was really a guy that loved the game of baseball. He continued that love even after he got out of the big leagues and after some injuries hurt his career in the game. He continued his love for baseball. I know he loved to listen to the Phillies. He loved to come back to Philadelphia and visit with some of the guys. We had a couple reunions that he attended, and it was really special. And obviously, you all witnessed the kind of heart he had with the battle that he put on to continue his life. He wanted to live, and he wanted to get back and be part of the community and be part of baseball again. God wouldn't let him do that, but he showed us what battling's all about. For you young fellas, I hope you'll take that to heart. I hope you'll take it out on the field with you. We wish you good luck in your series and certainly in your careers as athletes. And we thank you very much for including the Phillies in Chris Short's Memorial Day. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Joe Fleckinger, who is a semi-pro ball player and longtime friend of Chris Short.
Thank you, Margaret. Chris and I were teammates in Wilmington semi-pro team many years ago, and it's certainly one of the thrills of my life. I think it's entirely appropriate today in dedicating a field to a pitcher that the wind is blowing straight in from center field. Not that Chris would have needed it, but I'm sure that pitchers would be happy to pitch today at this field. Anyone who knew Chris knew that one of the great loves of his life was the Lewis area, and there can be no doubt that the people of this area, in light of the support that they gave Chris during his life and now with this great memorial, are returning that love. Another of Chris's great loves was the Philadelphia Phillies organization, and I can tell you from being greatly involved during Chris's illness that the support that they gave Chris and his family during that time was just incredible, and I want to thank them again for their help and support during Chris's time of illness. The reason I'm here today is to announce, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to announce, that two former teammates of Chris, Art Mahaffey and Larry Christensen, who worked very hard to raise money to pay Chris's medical expenses and convalescent care expenses during his illness, that the two of them have turned over the money left over from those funds in excess of $42,000 to the University of Delaware for a Chris Short Memorial Scholarship. This scholarship will be awarded to a Delaware resident who plays baseball at the University of Delaware. Art Mahaffey has agreed to continue to try to raise funds. I'm also pleased to announce the formation of the Chris Short Foundation. That foundation's goal will be to supplement those funds on deposit at the University of Delaware to the point where, and hopefully in a couple of years, there will be a perpetually endowed Chris Short Scholarship. 100 years from now, a Delaware boy will be playing baseball at the University of Delaware in Chris Short's memory. I think that's a great tribute to Chris. I really appreciate being a part of the program here. Thank you. Good luck to both teams, and thank you all for coming.
At this time, I am extremely pleased to introduce Captain Mike Cunningham, whose dream we are realizing.
Thank you, Marge. Joe and I were just talking when Dallas talked about Chris's inability to hit. One of Chris's proudest moments was 4 for 4 against Warren Spalding. I've often heard him speak of that. I'm sure you fellows remember that. I became good friends with Chris after his playing days. He's a few years older than I am. And I had the pleasure of presenting Chris with his first championship trophy when he came here to play softball with Lou Ioneers. Unfortunately, Chris didn't play with any World Series teams with his years with the Phillies during the 50s and early 60s. They weren't the top of the pack at that time. Had some of the great teams that Paul Owens and Dallas Green put together in the late 70s and early 80s. I think that's what makes some of his achievements even more remarkable. 135 wins in the big leagues for some pretty poor teams. A few days after Chris passed away last August, Lou Rickards wrote an article in the local newspaper, The Whale, as a tribute to Chris. We thought it'd be appropriate to read that article today. Unfortunately, Lou couldn't be here today. His article got the ball rolling on making this day reality. But he's been sent to Florida on a seminar by our employer. Very untimely, but he couldn't avoid it. So I'd like to read that article right now. A tribute to the late, great Phillies pitcher Chris Short. On Thursday, August 1st, the good Lord acquired former Lewis High School and Phillies pitching great J. Christopher Short. It was a straight transaction that cleared waivers and involved 1,000 memories. In the late 50s and early 60s, Chris Short put Lewis on the map. There wasn't any Cape May Lewis ferry, and no one knew what a townhouse was. If you ran out of gas between Lewis and Rehoboth, you were in trouble. But everyone knew that there was a big guy from Lewis High School who had made Eddie Sawyer's 1959 Philadelphia Phillies. As kids just completing our brief Little League career, we were wide-eyed to think that someone from Lewis High School was on the same field with Richie Ashburn, Robin Roberts, and Willie Jones. The fact that we went to the same school and played on the same field as Chris Short would boggle the mind. We would stand on the high school mound and look at each other thinking that Short had stood here on this very mound. I can remember in 1959 when the Phillies would be on TV each Sunday afternoon. As soon as Short would be sent to the bullpen to warm up, my father would come to the back door and shout to our backyard baseball game that Shorty's warming up. With that, all bats and gloves would be dropped and a dozen kids would stand around the black and white TV waiting for a glimpse of our idol, each of us hoping that the Phillies starter would get clobbered so that they would bring in Chris. When By Sam would announce that Short was being brought in, it was like the circus had come to town. We knew that Chris would shut him down, or a Russian agent had done something to his arm during the night. The guys in the neighborhood would go down to Al Stango's Western Auto store and try to find a Chris Short model glove, but all you could find was, quote, dumb old Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, and Stan Musial gloves. Just because Short was a pitcher was no reason that his name shouldn't be on a bat. From 1964 through 1968, Short was one of the best pitchers in the game. That included names such as Koufax, Gibson, Marichal, Bunning, and Drysdale, to name a few. Pretty good company for a guy who used to hang his sweatshirt in the basement locker at Lewis High School. The records show that Short won 135 Major League games, 131 for the Phillies, struck out 1,629 batters. The book shows that he pitched over 2,300 Major League innings and compiled a very respectable 3.43 ERA. The same book will show that he played the entire 1963 season without making a single fielding error. It will also show that he is tied for the National League record of pitching opening day shutouts, which was 3. What the book will not tell is that Chris Short shows every young athlete who wants to excel that a kid from small-town America can come out of high school and get to the big show. All the pros don't have to come from New York, Philly, Chicago, and LA. Some come from Lewis, Short, and Morris, Georgetown, Shockley, Millsboro, Betts, Sudlersville, Fox, Chestertown, Nicholson, and I might add Delano de Shields, just a short distance away in Seaford. For 15 years, Chris Short hurled in the big time, stepping off planes in Chicago, San Francisco, St. Louis, New York, LA, Houston, and Milwaukee, to name a few. That's a long way from school bus rides from Lewis to Del Mar, Milford, Ocean View, Millsboro, Georgetown, Rehoboth. For 30 years, Chris Short has been the example of what good young ball players in this region are compared to. For the next 30 years or longer, he will remain the scale of comparison. His efforts and outstanding career brought much pride to the area both during and after his playing days. I think it is only fitting and proper that the Cape Henlopen School Board should take the required action to name the high school baseball field in Short's honor. Perhaps a formal dedication next spring with his family and former coaches Tony Georgiana and Don Hanley present would be in order, and here we are. Along with the Chris Short Memorial Field should be the Chris Short number 41 award, comparable to the coveted Sam Russell Football Award, to the player on the baseball team that best exemplifies Chris's spirit and love of the game. I can see the scenario about 20 years from now, a young catcher talking to his coach about his battery mate. Coach, he can really throw smoke. The coach moves some dirt with his spikes, spits about 2 ounces of tobacco juice on the ground, and says, "Son, you never saw Chris Short, did you?" I have a cigar box full of Chris Short baseball cards. If anyone is interested in swapping, it will take 8 million Mickey Mantles, 11 Ernie Banks, 1,500 Stan Lepatas, a pallet of Connie Mack Stadium bricks, and the Chris Short model glove and bat. Each year at this time, contenders acquire veteran pitchers to help them down the stretch drive. Chris Short got the call for the biggest show of all. There must be one heck of a pennant race going on up there. I read several tributes in the Wilmington and Philadelphia papers right after Chris's death, and written by professional sports writers. Okay, at this time we'd like to unveil this beautiful monument, and we'd like Pat, Chris's wife, Mr. Short, his father, and son Ron to come up and do the honors for us, please. And with that, it's my honor to officially declare this Chris Short Memorial Field. Along with the dedication of this field, we've also established an annual Chris Short Award, which is going to go to the Cape baseball player that best exemplifies Chris's competitive spirit and love of the game. As the article mentioned, it's not going to be necessarily the best player, but someone who gives 100%, a coach's type player. If anyone has done any coaching, you know a lot of times the superstars can give you a lot of headaches, but someone who gives 100%, pats his teammates on the back when things are going tough. Players will pick the winner at the end of the season. The winner will be announced at the annual sports banquet. There will also be a monument or a plaque to go into school. Each year a player's name will be added to it. Lou Rickards is funding this award in honor of his father, who played at Lewis High School in the 1930s. In closing, there's a few people I'd like to also thank. Marge has touched on a few of them. I'd like to thank Doug Melson. I haven't seen Doug today. I'm not sure he's here. Doug was very helpful in the selection of this monument. We looked at a few different things, but the big plus for this is it's maintenance free. This thing's going to outlive all of it. The inscription is sandblasted in it, and everyone is invited to come up and take a look after the ceremony. Doug arranged for us to purchase this. Doug was also, if the weather was going to turn sour today, was going to supply some tents, but fortunately that didn't happen. I called Pat last week and to put the final touches on the ceremony, and I told her at that time that we may have to go inside if the weather was bad. We were making contingency plans, and she assured me it would not rain, that Chris would take care of that. So Chris did. About 8 o'clock last night, I thought Chris was out fishing. I forgot to put in a good word, but he came through for us. Lloyd Memorials in Dover. We purchased this thing at cost, no profit to Lloyd Memorials. Pat Quillen did a tremendous sign on this sign. Now that thing was covered last night, but the wind and rain got to it, so it was unveiled early. But Pat Quillen painted that sign and supplied it at cost also. I'd like to thank Marge Peck, the very efficient athletic director here at Cape, for making the arrangements and organizing this ceremony today. And most importantly, I think, is to the financial contributors who made all this possible. I've been involved with a few other fundraisers in my time. I see a few of my colleagues from Lewis Little League here, and we know that how tough that is, raising money for Little League. But this was very easy. It was just a matter of picking up the phone, contacting old friends, high school classmates, and everyone was more than willing to donate. I think it's also rather ironic, if you'll look in your program, the insert, if you get time, the number of contributors is 41. That was Chris's number with the Phillies. That wasn't planned, it just turned out that way. I counted them up last week, there were 41 contributors. And finally, I'd like to thank our honored guest from the Phillies for coming down. Dallas, we won't hold that against you, you're with the Mets, but it could be worse, you could be working for George Steinbrenner again. And a special thanks also to coaches, all the coaches are here, but especially coaches Georgiana and Hanley, who Chris played for. Finally, let me say to these young athletes from both teams here today, if you guys have as much fun and enjoyment playing baseball as Chris Short did, you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of this great game. Thank all of you very much.
At this time, I'd like to invite the Viking baseball captains, Michael Evick and Brian Mifflin, to come forward, please.
Good morning. I'm Mike Evick. This is Brian Mifflin. We are seniors and captains of the 1992 Vikings baseball team. It is our honor to accept this memorial as a major focus of the Chris Short Memorial Field. It is our hope that this memorial will inspire all Cape Henlopen baseball players and our visiting team players to share and exhibit Chris Short's spirit and love of the game of baseball. Placed at this corner of the field, everyone who passes will have the opportunity to reflect on his commitment and desire to be the best ball player he can be. And on behalf of the 1992 Vikings, we would like to present Mrs. Short with this autographed baseball from our team. Thank you very much.
I have one addition that we kind of kept as a surprise for you, and while I make a few comments, if Mayor Stango would please come forward. We were very blessed with the help of John Schroeder to obtain a resolution from the House, John Schroeder being our representative from the 37th District. And at this time, Mayor Stango will share that with us.
Thank you, Marge. A lot of people in Lewis know that Chris Short used to hang out at the Western Auto. Anytime anyone wanted to see Chris, they came to my Western Auto. And Chris needed shotgun shells when he belonged to the Bobby Dell down in Maryland. He just took them and went. And I said, okay, Chris. I'll tell you a couple of stories about Chris. Money didn't mean anything to Chris. He was hanging out in the store one day, and we were talking. He said, Al, I'm going to go to Philadelphia front office. I said, okay. He said, I'll be back to see you. He came back about 4 or 5 hours later. He signed his contract for $50,000. I said, that quick? Today, they go to arbitration. They got agents. What would happen to Chris if he had an agent today? Winning 20 games for the Phillies. As everyone knows, I go to spring training. I got a place down in Florida. I see Mr. Paul Owens down there. Dallas Green was down here this past February, and I was talking to Mr. Dallas Green. He managed the fantasy team down there. He's still a good manager. Right, Dallas? We were talking down there. He remembers me. So I got from the state of Delaware, House Resolution number 108. I hereby certify that the enclosed is the same act that was passed by the House of Representatives of the 136th General Assembly. Joanne M. Hendrick, Chief Clerk of the House, certified with Donna A. Snell, Bill Clerk of the House. This is a great honor for me, and I want to thank Dennis Reardon for allowing me to read this resolution. House of Representatives, 136th General Assembly. House Resolution number 108, April 6, 1992. Recognizing the lifetime of athletic and personal achievement of Chris Short and commending the dedication of the Chris Short Memorial Field. 1. Whereas Chris Short was a native son of Sussex County and attended Lewis High School and the University of Delaware. 3. Whereas Chris Short, as the Scholastic Athletic, earned varsity letters in baseball, basketball, football, and track. Whereas Chris Short played professional baseball from 1957 till his retirement after the 1973 season. And whereas after 2 successful seasons in the minor leagues, Chris Short was elevated to the Phillies Major League Opening Day roster in 1959. Whereas Chris Short made his Major League pitching debut on April the 19th, 1959, in a game against the Cincinnati Reds, and I remember that game distinctly. He came in as a release pitcher and struck out the first 6 guys. It's hard to believe, but he did that. The first Cincinnati Reds, 6 of them. He struck them all out. That was a great opening for Chris Short. And that's why Gene Mott took him under his wing, I guess, after that game. During Chris Short's 15 years in Major League Baseball, he won 135 games and struck out 1,629 batters and pitched in more than 2,300 Major League innings. Chris Short compiled a lifetime earned run average of 3.43, and whereas Chris Short won 17 or more games 4 times in a 5-year span, starting in 1964. Chris Short became the first modern Philadelphia Philly left-handed pitcher to win 20 games in 1966. Chris Short had the 3rd lowest earned run average in the National League in 2 separate seasons. Although Chris Short was predominantly known for his pitching prowess, he played the entire 1963 season without a fielding error, and on one occasion went 4 for 4 against Hall of Fame pitcher Warren Spahn in 1 game. Whereas Chris Short pitched in the 1964 and 67 All-Star games for the National League and holds the National League for most opening day shutouts and tied the National League record for most strikeouts in an extra inning game with 18. Chris Short was a kind and generous man, renowned for his kindness to the youth of Sussex County. As evidence of Chris Short's genuine affection for his many friends and fans, the Philadelphia Phillies front office has estimated that Chris Short made more public relation and banquet appearance than any player in Philadelphia history. Chris Short was an outstanding role model and an idol to the young people of Lewis, Delaware. Chris Short, athletic accomplishment and winning personality, have set an extraordinary example for all young athletes. Whereas on September 26, 1991, the Board of Education approved the name the Chris Short Memorial Field for the baseball field at Cape Henlopen School. The Chris Short Memorial Field will be appropriate, recognized with a permanent monument with the contribution of Chris Short's friends and fans from Sussex County. Now thereof, be it resolved, the House of Representatives of the 136th General Assembly of the State of Delaware hereby recognize the lifetime and personal achievement of Chris Short and commends the decision to honor the memory of Chris Short with dedication of the Chris Short Memorial Field. Be it further resolved that upon adoption of this resolution, a suitable prepared copy of this resolution be presented to Chris Short's family, most notably his wife Pat, his father Isaac, who continues to reside in Georgetown, Delaware. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
WW.